What possesses a pilot to keep flying a crippled, burning bomber straight over a heavily defended enemy city? With engines failing, controls shot away, crew wounded or dying, knowing escape might be impossible. On the night of November 3rd, 1943, at around 02:00 p.m., over the skies of Germany, Flight Lieutenant William Reed, piloting Lancaster bomber Me-557 of No. 61 Squadron RAF, released his bombs precisely over Dusseldorf at Ewen-Launsen feet. Moments earlier, his aircraft had shuddered, violently struck by a 500-pound bomb dropped from a friendly Lancaster 6,000 feet above. The explosion tore through the fuselage, severed control cables, shattered the windscreen, set fires in the rear, wounded the navigator and wireless operator, and killed the mid-upper gunner. The rear turret was wrecked. Flames licked along the starboard wing. The aircraft lurched, nose down, out of control. Red, hit in the head, shoulders, and arms by shrapnel, fought to regain level flight. Blood streamed into his eyes. The cockpit filled with freezing wind and smoke. The navigator, bleeding from head wounds, crawled forward to hell. The bomb aimer was unconscious. Yet Reed refused to turn back. He wrestled the yoke with what strength remained, trimmed the crippled bomber using rudder and throttle alone, and held course for the target through intense flak and night fighters. Searchlights pinned the Lancaster. Anti-aircraft shells burst around it, adding more holes. A Focke-Wulf FW-190 fighter raked the length of the fuselage with cannon fire, wounding Red further and knocking out the last functioning gun turret. With bombs gone, the plane began a slow descent. Red ordered the crew to prepare to bail out, but first, he nursed the burning Lancaster away from the target area, avoiding civilian zones below as best he could. The aircraft lost altitude steadily. Engines coughed, fuel leaked. At around 9:30 p.m., over the Dutch coast near the Zuider Zee, Reed gave the order to abandon the plane. He stayed the controls until the last man jumped, then bailed out himself at low level. His parachute opened just in time. He landed in a Dutch field, wounded but alive. The Lancaster crashed nearby. Reed's crew suffered terribly. 2 dead, others injured. Yet the bombs had fallen on target. Photographic evidence later confirmed hits in the central Dusseldorf area. In those desperate minutes, one pilot's refusal to abandon the mission turned a doomed aircraft into a weapon that struck home. How does a man, bleeding and half-blind, keep his hands on the yoke when every instinct screams to escape? On that November night, William Reed showed the answer. Duty, training, and an unbreakable will to complete the task, even as the plane burned around him. The event occurred during the RAF Bomber Command's strategic bombing campaign against German industry and cities in 1943. Part of the broader Allied effort to weaken Nazi Germany's war machine before the invasion of Europe. By late 1943, Bomber Command flew large-scale night raids using Avro Lancaster heavy bombers for engine aircraft capable of carrying up to 14,000 pounds of bombs over long distances. These raids targeted cities like Dusseldorf, a major industrial center producing steel, chemicals, and armaments vital to the German war effort. The November 3rd raid involved over 500 bombers from various squadrons, including No. 61 Squadron based at Herfsierston. The objective was to hit factories, rail yards, ANI, UNFRA, STR, UCT, URE, amid heavy defenses, flak batteries, searchlights, and night fighters from Luftwaffe units equipped with Messerschmitt, Bf-1, 10s, and Junkers Ru 88s Collisions and friendly bomb drops from aircraft above were rare but deadly risks in the tight bomber streams. Reed's Lancaster joined the stream. After takeoff from England around 5 p.m., the flight crossed the North Sea, navigated by stars and H-2S radar, then entered German airspace. Mid-upper gunner Sergeant John Jeffries was killed early by fighter attack. The rear gunner, Flight Sergeant Eddie Overton, manned his turret until it was destroyed. The bomb hit from above likely a 500 pounds cookie or incendiary ripped through the fuselage, severing hydraulics and electrics. The aircraft became a flying wreck. No aileron control, elevators partially gone, compass shattered, intercom dead in places. Despite these, Reed pressed on for 50 minutes to the target. The importance lay in maintaining the raid's concentration. Scattered bombing reduced effectiveness. Accurate drops disrupted production. Dusseldorf raids in 1943 caused significant damage to Rheinmetall factories and rail networks. Reed's bombs were plotted on target, contributing to fires visible for miles. The survival aspect highlighted the Lancaster's rugged design. Multiple engines, self-sealing tanks, and armored positions allowed some to limp home or give crews bailout chances. Red bailed out successfully. Others parachuted into occupied Netherlands, evading capture or becoming POS. To crew, the A.D. Jeffries from fight to fire, another from wounds or bailout. This raid exemplified the high cost of strategic bombing. Bomber Command lost 30 aircraft that night, hundreds of airmen killed or captured. It showed the brutal arithmetic of area bombing. Civilian casualties occurred, though military targets were primary. Reed's actions earned the Victoria Cross citation, noting his complete indifference to personal injury and determination to bomb accurately. The background underscores the nature of aerial warfare in 1943. Long flights in unpressurized aircraft, sub-zero temperatures, oxygen masks, constant threat of interception. Pilots like Reed flew multiple tours. Fatigue, fear, and mechanical failure were constant. Understanding this frames the personal ordeal. A young officer, Reed was 21, leading a 7-man crew, deciding to continue when escape was possible. It illustrates how individual resolve amid chaos could fulfill mission goals at extreme personal risk, contributing to the cumulative pressure on German industry that helped shorten the war. The night raid began routinely at 5:15 p.m. on November 3rd, 1943. Avro Lancaster ME-557 lifted off from RAF Syerston, England, one of over 500 heavy bombers streaming toward Dusseldorf. Flight Lieutenant William Reed, 21 years old, sat in the pilot's seat, hands steady on the control yoke. The 7-man crew navigator, bomb aimer, wireless operator, flight engineer, mid-upper gunner, rear gunner ran through final checks. The Lancaster carried a 4,000-pound cookie blast bomb and incendiaries, destined for industrial targets in the Ruhr. Climbing to 20,000 feet over the North Sea, the bomber stream formed up under a moonlit sky. Navigation relied on G-boxers, H-2S, radar, and dead reckoning. At around 7:45 p.m., crossing the Dutch coast, flak B&80 8mm shells bursting in black puffs below. Searchlights swept upward, catching scattered aircraft. Reed kept the Lancaster steady, engines droning evenly. The first attack came without warning at approximately 8:10 p.m. A Focke-Wulf FW-190 night fighter, equipped with upward firing, music cannons, closed from below. Cannon shells ripped through the fuselage, killing mid-upper gunner Sergeant John Jeffries instantly. The rear turret was damaged. Flight Sergeant Eddie Overton struggled to return fire with his 4.303 Browning machine guns. The fighter broke away, leaving smoke trailing from the Lancaster's starboard wing. Reed trimmed the aircraft, checking instruments. "Everyone all right?" he called over intercom. Static answered from the rear. Then, at roughly 8:20 p.m., disaster struck again. A 500-pound bomb dropped from a Lancaster 6,000 feet above fell through Mi-557's fuselage. The explosion tore a gaping hole behind the bomb bay, severed elevator and rudder cables, shattered the windscreen, and set small fires in the rear. Shrapnel struck Reed in the head, right shoulder, and arms. Blood poured into his eyes. The cockpit, filled with icy wind at -30 Celsius. The aircraft pitched violently nose down. Reed fought the yoke, using throttle and rudder to level out. The navigator, Flight Sergeant John Jeff, bleeding from a head wound, crawled forward and helped brace the controls. Wireless operator Sergeant James Menzies was wounded in the legs but stayed at his set. Bomema, Sergeant Baza Washington was unconscious from concussion. Flight engineer Sergeant Alexander McIntosh worked frantically to extinguish rear fires with extinguishers. Despite the damage, Reed refused to jettison bombs early or turn back. "We're going on," he told the crew. For the next 50 minutes, he nursed the crippled bomber toward Dusseldorf. "Controls!" responded sluggishly. The aircraft crabbed sideways from unbalanced lift. Flak intensified over the Ruhr 88mm shells bursting close, fragments punching more holes. A second fighter attack raked the length of the fuselage with 20mm cannon, wounding Reed again and knocking out the front turret. At 9 p.m., over the target, Reed lined up visually through the shattered windscreen. Searchlights blinded him. Flak rocked the plane. The bomb aimer, revived but dazed, released the load on Reed's order. Bombs fell accurately into the central industrial area. Later reconnaissance photos showed fires and damage in Rheinmetall factories and rail yards. With bombs gone, the Lancaster began a slow, uncontrolled descent. Engines coughed from fuel leaks. One propeller feathered itself. Reed ordered the crew to prepare pairs. He flew westward, avoiding populated areas below, as best he could. The aircraft lost altitude steadily at 10,000 feet, 15,000, 12,000. At around 9:30 p.m. near the Zuiderzee, Reed gave the bailout order. He held the yoke until the last man jumped. Navigator Jeff first, then others. Reed bailed out at low level, parachute opening seconds before impact. He landed in a muddy Dutch field, wounded and dazed. The Lancaster crashed nearby in flames. To crew Deat Jeffries from the initial fighter attack, Overton from wounds or bailout failure. The others: Reed, Jeff Menzies, Washington, McIntosh survived. Though injured, they were captured by German forces shortly after landing. Becoming heroics unfolded in fragments. Reed's refusal to abandon the mission kept the aircraft on course. McIntosh fought fires with bare hands when extinguishers ran dry. Jeff, bleeding heavily, helped trim controls for 40 minutes. Menzies sent a brief distress signal before collapsing. Losses were immediate and brutal. 2 dead, 5 wounded, 1 aircraft destroyed. Technology played its part. The Lancaster's for Rolls-Royce Merlin engines allowed it to absorb massive damage. 3 still ran despite leaks. Self-sealing fuel tanks prevented total fire. The .303 Browning turrets provided defense, though ineffective against night fighters with cannon. German 88mm flak guns and FW-190 fighters with shriek music demonstrated the lethal efficiency of night defenses. Twists emerged in the chaos. The friendly bomb hitra, but catastrophic turned a survivable fighter strike into near-total loss of control. Reed's head wounds blurred vision, yet he navigated by instinct and partial instruments. The crew expected a crash at any moment, but the bomber held together long enough for bailout over friendly occupied territory. In the final minutes, over the target and descent at 9:05 p.m., with flak bursting around and the aircraft barely controllable, Red aligned for the bomb run. Blood streamed across his face. The shattered windscreen let in freezing wind that numbed his hands. The navigator braced beside him, holding one side of the yoke. "Steady. Steady," Reed muttered through clenched teeth. The bomb aimer, revived but weak, called the release. Bombs dropped cleanly. The Lancaster lurched upward as weight vanished. Immediately, the plane rolled into a shallow dive. Reed wrestled at level using throttle asymmetry and rudder ailerons useless, elevators partial. The altimeter unwound steadily. German searchlights followed. A flat battery scored a near miss, rocking the fuselage. Reed ordered the crew to don parachutes. "Get ready to jump," Said calmly. At 9:25 p.m., over the Dutch coast, the Lancaster dropped below 10,000 feet. One engine began fuel gauges showed critical. Reed flew west toward the North Sea, giving the crew the best chance of reaching Allied lines. If they bailed, at 9:35 p.m., near the Zuider Zee, he leveled at 4,000 feet. "Go now," he ordered. The crew bailed one by one, navigator first, then wireless operator, bomb aimer, engineer. Reed stayed at the controls until the cabin was empty. The aircraft was descending too fast for safe bailout. He trimmed it as best he could, then stood, clipped on his parachute, and jumped through the escape hatch. His chute opened at 1,000 feet. He landed hard in a field, legs bruised, head throbbing. German troops found him within hours. The others were captured nearby. The Lancaster crashed in flames. Wreckage scattered across farmland. The mission succeeded in its objective. Photographic reconnaissance confirmed bomb impacts in Dusseldorf's industrial core fires, burned for days, damaging factories and rail lines. The raid cost Bomber Command 30 aircraft and over 200 airmen, but Reed's bombs contributed to the cumulative pressure on German industry. Reed and surviving crew became POS. He spent the rest of the war in Stalag Luft 3, enduring forced marshes in early 1945. Liberated in April 1945, he returned to Britain. On August 14, 1945, King George VI presented him the Victoria Cross at Buckingham Palace. The citation praised his complete indifference to personal injury and courage, and devotion to duty and pressing. Homely attack, despite catastrophic damage. The resolution was survival against odds, but at heavy cost. 2 crew lost, aircraft destroyed, 5 men wounded and imprisoned. Reed's actions showed that even a near-doomed bomber could fulfill its mission if the pilot refused to quit. He did not fly into the enemy deliberately, unlike kamikaze, but he flew a burning, uncontrollable wreck to the target and beyond, ensuring the bombs fell where intended. The lesson emerged starkly. Duty can demand the impossible. When controls fail, when pain blinds, when death seems certain, the decision to keep going can still achieve the objective. Reed's stand was not about glory. It was about completing the task for the crew, the squadron, the broader effort. He later said, little of the night only, that he did what had to be done. In the end, the burning Lancaster reached its mark not by crashing into the enemy, but by staying airborne long enough to deliver its load. Survival came not from heroism alone, but from training, composure, and the stubborn refusal to abandon the mission while breath remained. The raid ended. The war continued. But for one crew, that November night defined the limit of human endurance and the point where it refused to break. William Reed returned to Britain after liberation in April 1945. He spent months recovering from his wounds, shrapnel scars across his head, shoulders, and arms, lingering pain in cold weather. The Victoria Cross was pinned to his chest by King George VI on August 14, 1945. In a quiet ceremony at Buckingham Palace, Reed spoke little during the investiture, only thanking the king and mentioning his crew. He never sought the spotlight again. After the war, Reed left the RAF and returned to civilian life in Scotland. He worked as an estate manager, raised a family, and lived quietly. He rarely discussed the night of November 3rd, 1943. When asked, he would say simply, "I just did my job." The 2 crewmen, Lost Sergeant John Jeffries and Flight Sergeant Eddie Overton, remained in his thoughts. He visited their graves when possible and kept their names alive in letters to families. Reed passed away on July 28, 2001, at age 79. His Victoria Cross is displayed at the Lord Ashcroft Gallery in the Imperial War Museum, London, alongside other awards from that era. The Lancaster he flew, Me-557, exists now only in photographs and records, but its final flight became part of bomber command lore. The raid on Dusseldorf was one of hundreds in the strategic bombing campaign, each costing lives and machines. Reed's actions showed that even when an aircraft is torn apart, when the crew is bleeding and the controls are gone, one person's determination can still deliver the payload and give others a chance to survive. He did not crash deliberately into the enemy. He flew a dying bomber to its target and beyond, ensuring the mission was completed before abandoning it. The story of that burning Lancaster reminds us of the narrow line between duty and sacrifice. In the darkness over Germany, with flames spreading and the ground rushing up, Reed chose to hold on until the last possible moment, not for glory, but because turning back would have meant failure for the mission, for his crew, for the men who flew beside him in the stream. I've just said what's recorded in history. You should find out the real truth yourself. We have written the sources from which we got this story in the description of this video, and we have always been and will be supporters of the oppressed, regardless of their color, race, or country. This world and its creator are also with the oppressed. Like this video. If stories of quiet courage resonate with you, comment below. Would you have done in Reed's seat that night? Subscribe and hit the bell for more forgotten WWII stories of men and machines pushed to the absolute limit. See you in the next one.